Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third talk in the series Ruminations, Art and Culture. Today, we have with us one of the leading contemporary artists in the country, Prajakta Potnis. Prajakta has extensively shown her work since 2001, nationally and internationally. Her solo shows have been exhibited at the New Media Art Space, New York, Project 88, Mumbai, Kunstler House, Bethanian, Berlin, Experimenter in Kolkata, M Gallery, South Korea, and Guild Art Gallery, Mumbai. Her works have also been exhibited at Guangzhou Biennale, Kochi Biennale, Cardist Art Foundation, Clark House, and many, many more. If we get into all of them, it will take 1 hour. So we're not going to get into all the different spaces. She uses the wall as a starting point to address social and individual anxieties. Her works dig deeper into the nexus between the frailty of the human body and the greed of a capitalist state. She uses painting, photography, radiology, and site-specific installations. Okay, so over to you.
Okay, thanks, Payal. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's absolutely a pleasure to meet everyone, and also I mean when I titled the work, when I titled the talk for today, I think I myself must have been daydreaming of sorts in the sense that so the title for the talk is extremely abstract. I think it comes from a situation or a space where you're kind of in an in-between space. I think in these in-between spaces is where you think of a work or you imagine work. So works come to you also in these kind of half awakenedness. So I thought it would be nice to just kind of title the talk to that. But I thought it would be also an opportunity to kind of, with everyone today, look back at a lot of earlier work and also see how work has kind of moved, because I think what happens with my particular practice is that I think I also build from one brick to the other. It's almost like you're building from one work to the other and you move in this one kind of direction or multiple directions through your earlier work. It's sometimes the circumstances that lead you to the next work, or it's sometimes things that you probably not really explored in your earlier work that lead you to the next work. So I think it'll be nice to kind of also just with everyone see this whole trajectory and also to see what it's forming, because I think it'll be helpful for me as well to look back at it and see where it's headed, what it's really trying to say. Because I think each time you look at your practice or you look back, you're trying to see things that you've probably missed seeing. And so I wish to do that with everyone today. Unfortunately, I am a bit technically challenged today and I'm unable to share my screen, but I think Payal is going to help me with it.
Yeah,
and,
I'll just start.
Yeah, so we can move to the slide number 2. Yeah. I think you'll have to go back. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of images today. Just to give a brief of my background, I studied at the JD School of Arts and I studied painting, and it was a 5-year course. And then after that, there was 2 years of post-graduation in painting. So I think JJ is an interesting college. It was also an exciting time to be in JJ, I think, at that time in the late 90s. Because it was about not only what was happening in JJ with some exciting seniors doing some really interesting work, but it was also what was happening in and around Bombay. There were many some international exhibitions that were coming in. There was Mohile Parikh Center, which was calling in interesting people to speak about art. And then there were film festivals happening in Bombay. So it was an interesting time. And I think it all kind of filters within your practice. But what you see here on your screen is actually a site-specific work that I did in my first year in college. And this was, I think, 1999. I was completely fascinated by site-specific installations that one was, seeing and studying through these small photographic kind of images from art history books. And you were imagining these kind of site-specific earthworks and installational works through your imagination, through those, by watching or looking at these small photographic kind of documentation of these works. So this was done in my actually my parents' room. It was actually like these bindis that we use. I had kind of stuck them on the wall, and the whole idea was to first actually to kind of scandalize my parents a bit, and also people who kept asking an art student then that, do you know how to make rangoli, and do you know how to make, portraits and things like that. So these are the common questions asked to an artist, if you join an art college, that can you do something realistic. So this was also a way of kind of poking back at people and saying, this is also art, and art can also be something that's just done on a wall of my parents' room. And it is, I share this work also because I think it is a crucial work for me when I look back, and the moment of doing it, I think is quite important for me. We can move to the next slide, ma'am. So this was, so being a painting student, this was, one was also, one was majorly painting and thinking of what painting should be, and what kind of narrative should one be, or what kind of painting one wanted to make. I think there were quite a few questions that were in my mind when I was approaching painting. One mainly being, what was the narrative, or what should the narrative be, or me as an artist should be always narrating stories. Is that my job? Should I be always telling stories? And then, one starts thinking of narrative painting and narration within an art. And I was quite, I wasn't so, I was skeptical of linear narrations, and I was interested in narrations which were non-linear or abstract in that sense. This particular work, it's actually titled Behind My Back, and it's actually a painting next to a photographic work. It's a diptych. And for me, I was thinking of this sofa, which was a couch in my parents' house, and I was just thinking that for me, this narrative was that someone sat on this couch and they almost got this infection or the print onto them. So the idea of infection, skin, body was also something that was always on the surface. I think in terms of being fascinated with narratives that were of skin and surface and walls especially. We can move to the next slide. Yeah. This is a site-specific installation again, which was installed at the Codes Residency. This was in 2005. And what you see at the bottom is is the skirting of a cloth, of a frill, which is just kind of stuck onto the bottom of the wall. And the whole idea was of imagining a wall turning into a curtain, and thinking of walls as almost porous walls. And I think this particular work actually came to me when actually I painted something like that. So it was a drawing that I'd made, I painted it, and then I was thinking of making this into a real installation. So I mean, in the last three images that we saw, I think I move in and out of mediums quite uh, in and out quite often. So there could be a painting which gets converted into an installation, or an installation or a photograph, then, or an object which gets converted into a photographic work. And so I kind of move, kind of sail in and out of mediums, and also, yeah, we can move to the next image. So the same work was much later, I think in 2011, installed at Zakenta National Gallery of Art in Warsaw. And here, obviously, the architecture and all these moldings on the wall kind of add to the installational piece. But I had to be very particular about the cloth, and the cotton cloth had to kind of be of a certain kind of, weave or things, where it kind of almost merged into the wall, and it didn't feel like a separate thing. Yeah, we can move to the next one. Yeah, so this is a close-up. No, can we go back? Yeah, this is a close-up of the work that we just saw. So it was also fun carrying this work. I mean, making this work, because it was almost like you'd carried your work in your suitcase, installed it on, the skirting of this whole space, and then come back. And, I mean, I also am interested in the easiness of something, of making something without bothering about scale so much. Because I think our practices also are so defined with the kind of spaces we inhabit. So I have a small studio in Bombay, which is a rented space. It's a 1 BHK, uh, and then one needs to kind of also not be burdened with this space, right? So you almost are imagining work outside these spaces, where you're not burdened by the scale of something. And I kind of try and play around with that quite often. We can move to the next one. So this was 2008, and what you see here are actually these plastic beads that are stuck onto a glass bulb, like a normal electrical bulb, Philips bulb. And it was also a crazy moment for me. I was also questioning what I was doing, and I wasn't sure what I was doing, and I was not so happy with what I was doing. I wanted to kind of just uh, break the pattern that one kind of falls into. And this was 2008. It was also a time when I was looking at, I'd made some works which were kind of from some, I'd made some paintings which were based on some personal kind of narratives around my mom's uterus. So my mom had suffered this, fibroids in her uterus, and I had visually seen them when they were removed. And I think that image kind of really stayed with me for a very long time. And I think it comes back within work in different ways. So I was really interested in looking at this whole idea of some kind of a growth that was, some kind of a cancerous growth that had grown within, and had, kind of just infected the whole house. So it was also some kind of a viral infection that, has moved from one object to the other. And we can move to the next image. Yeah. So what you see is a toothbrush. So there were just random objects that I had chosen from the studio, which were lying around, and I had stuck these beads onto them. And it was almost like an obsessive act of sticking things onto these everyday objects, and kind of just like I just did that quite obsessively, not knowing how and what I was going to do with them. Can we see the next image? Yeah. So this is how it was finally displayed, because I really had no clue of how I was going to display them. There were almost, I think, about 150 odd objects with beads, and also I'd used mustard seeds on some of them, and they were just random. There were quite a bit of them. And so the question to me was, how do I display these objects? Should I kind of just invite everybody in the studio and have the viewer come and experience them within their spaces and sites, or should I kind of install them as objects and see how they work? I thought the easier solution was to just invite everyone in the studio and see them, but I was also interested in seeing them as cultural objects, and I kind of wanted to question and see and test for myself what do I do with them if they come to a gallery space. It's extremely challenging, because then you need to think. Can we move to the next slide? Because then you need to also think of the display, right? You have to think of the pedestal, and you don't want the object to be on the pedestal because it's not such a pristine object. It's finally a toothbrush or a shoe or soap dish. How do you kind of make sense of them after installing them? So after like really not knowing for a long time, I finally came to a conclusion of placing them on these platforms that I made. So for me, they became almost like these cultural platforms on which these other objects were placed, almost like some kind of an archaeological, table, which has laid all these objects down, which, were found somewhere else probably. Can we see the next slide? So here, so the stone that I used was from the kitchen platform, the granite stone, which is like absolutely visible in each, most commonly used in middle class homes as kitchen platforms. And I tried to carve the stone with some kind of formations of. So what you see here is actually a wash basin, which has got the soap dish around it, and it's almost like it's flattened. It's like a low relief sculpture which is holding these sculptures on top of them. And can we go back to the slide 9? Yeah, this one. No, the next one. Yeah. So what you see there on the wall is also a circular formation of photographic kind of reference to where these objects were. So there were photographs of these objects in my studio, and the whole idea was to also kind of situate them from where they were found, and then laid them down onto these tables. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, we can wait here. So what happened was, like, okay, I made these 150 objects, which were all flooding my, small 1 BHK studio. And then these tables also, because you try to solve one problem and then you create another problem. That's what I did, I think. There were these tables which were made, and then they came, like, there was, luckily for me, I think one small section of the table was bought by a museum, so that was my luck. But the rest of the tables came back to the studio, and they were extremely difficult to manage and maneuver, and I was quite I was really not sure how I was going to deal with these really heavy objects that were kind of really physically occupying the space in my studio. And I really needed to rethink my practice again. And I was like, I can't make these kind of things that burden me and my practice. I need to make work which keeps me agile and simpler. It's easier to kind of make them. And actually, that's the reason I moved to photography. It's a horrible reason, but it is what it is. It opened up a totally different world for me. And photography came to me literally because of my space constraint. I actually was quite sure I didn't want to kind of make things that would burden me. And so photography opened a totally different world for me. And I started, it was also a time when there were a lot of these, I think in the news, it was mentioned that the local vegetable vendors were going to be selling a lot of the genetically modified vegetables. So your local cauliflowers and your aubergines, your bengans that were found in the market were all genetically modified. I was and obviously there were all these narratives of the farmers' suicides and things like that in the backdrop. But I was also wondering what it would do to be consuming these genetically modified uh, vegetables. And so for me, literally, do we still have the image on the screen? I'm sorry, I can't see.
No, I can't see it.
Yeah. Payal? I think we lost Payal. Baba, you need to close your, you need to close your video, Baba. I'm sorry, my dad. Payal, yeah, I lost you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the internet, I'm
No
really
problem. Yeah, we can be on the cauliflower image.
Yeah, I have to be made host again. Prince, please, can you make me host?
It was nice to see my dad in between all this.
I'm so sorry, the electricity
No
went
problem.
suddenly, so.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so the genetically modified vegetable and also kind of imagining what it would be to kind of consume this. One second, I need to kind of, yeah. What it would do to be consuming this, and also because I was making those objects which were kind of the found objects. I think it was almost like making those sculptural found objects and placing them inside the refrigerator. I also stumbled upon the space of the refrigerator because of the genetically modified vegetables. I wanted to kind of stage this whole narrative of these genetically modified vegetables inside a refrigerator and stage the dialogue from the inside of the refrigerator. So what you see here is obviously a cauliflower, but it's also a sculptural cauliflower for me. So I've kind of literally made it with I mean, I've used different florets of it and kind of constructed them into a mushroom cloud. So you almost feel like it's the mushroom cloud that's probably almost stationed in and being photographed inside a refrigerator. So I was fascinated by the refrigerator, the inside of the refrigerator also, because I mean I stumbled upon it because of the vegetables that I was interested in. Can we look at the next image, fine? Yeah, so what you see here are actually aubergines, your bengans, which have glass beads on them. So for me, it was almost like a continuous process from the objects that were kind of laid onto the kitchen platforms. They're moved into the inside of the refrigerator. We can move to the next slide. Yeah. So here you see the tomatoes. Yeah. And yeah, so are we seeing the tomatoes pile just now? I mean, not sure.
I can see the tomatoes. I can see the tomatoes.
Yeah, the tomatoes. Okay, we're all on the okay. Yeah, so basically, yeah, it's the same space. It's just that it is an upside down image, and again, there's a cluster of these tomatoes with some glass beads on them, and yeah. And what you see here on the top is actually a plastic kind of a plastic brocade thing that is used to kind of uh, save the surface of your refrigerator, so that you don't have scratch marks on it. And it was something that was used by my mom, and I think it's also something that makes the space very domesticated. I think otherwise the space is so alienating. I think it's really the carpet, the plastic carpet, which kind of makes it extremely locates it into a domestic space. Yeah. Yeah, this is again the image of the next image. We're on the next image, right?
Yeah.
The cauliflower image. Yeah. So again, these are, I mean, you see portions of say cauliflower with say cotton and some. So there are various things kind of in it. So you also see some semolina, rava, which is like also added on to this to just create some kind of feeling of clouds. So from working in photography, I also was around the same time. This was 2009, and I was interested in looking at walls and walls in in middle class homes. And there was this one particular idea of stitching a wall, and I was thinking what it would be to kind of actually stitch a wall. Was it possible to do it? And this was part of a show in Bombay. It was curated by Nancy Adajania, where I was so I painted the wall, and then these threads that are stuck on the wall, which look like they're cracks on the wall. We are watching the next slide, right? I mean, I don't know if who's sharing the screen. I feel like I'm sharing the screen right now.
Oh. No, I am sharing.
Okay, so the next
Can you see it?
The next image, installation at the Guangzhou Biennial.
Where you're installed.
Yeah.
So you can see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We can move to the next image.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was shown at the Guangzhou Biennial. Again, the title of the work is Sewing, and the whole idea was to kind of use a thread or a needle to actually poke at the hard surface of the wall and to actually imagine if it was possible to kind of penetrate that. So there's this act of resistance. For me, it's almost like that there's this act of dissent or resistance where you're trying to push your way through or crack open a wall. But by using threads, one is also trying to stitch something that's broken and then create patterns of cracks onto the walls. Can we look at the next image? Yeah, it was also installed later at the Kunstmuseum Wolfsburg in 2018. And this was a massive wall. This was again 16 meters. One can see the scale of it. But it's the same material. It's the same thread. It's just the same cotton thread that's used to kind of stitch clothes, sew things. Now we can look at the next image. So I went back to the refrigerator. I felt like, I'd not explored the space enough. And I almost felt like there was something more that I could have, because obviously situating the dialogue of these genetically modified vegetables was obviously one way of looking at it. But I discovered the site of the refrigerator in doing so. And I found that quite almost enchanting, almost a space that was so alienating, and one could almost have this feeling like there were, like you could be inside a mall or an airport. And so it's the same space where I shot the cauliflower. You can see the plastic carpet that my mom uses inside a refrigerator. So that's obviously there. And I've also used these escalators. So what I did was I kind of managed to make these small escalators, and then I staged them inside the refrigerator. So there is obviously this act of staging and then taking a picture of that frozen moment. But there's also the element of making sculptures and then staging this whole thing, making pictures of the staged setting. I look at them also as non-spaces, and there is this beautiful text by Mark Augie, which speaks of non-spaces, of how, airports and malls create the sense of alienation within, where you could be in any part of the world and it all looks the same. So you could be in an airport in New York, or you could be at the airport in Bombay, and the airport would be inside of the airport would look so much similar to that you'd not know where you are. Can we move to the next image? Yeah. So again, it's from the same series. It's titled Capsule. Yeah. This is a different refrigerator. This is a refrigerator that's much older looking, and yeah. So I do not use a lot of Photoshop, what I do is I might just add a filter onto the image, but there's not much of correction that happens. The correction might just be in terms of just a filter of blue or green onto the work, onto the photograph. Yeah, can we see the next image? So they were also shown as light boxes at the Bhauda Jail Art Museum, and this is how they were displayed. You can see the next image. Yeah, that's the scale of it. So you're almost also playing with scale. You're almost like, making it look like you're probably walking inside these spaces. Can we look at the next one? Yeah, so I think what you're seeing right now is landscape. It's a painting. It's 25 inches by 33.5 inches. And I think I resist showing paintings only because I find it extremely challenging when one has to when paintings have to stand for themselves like that onto screens like this. I really feel like painting should be viewed in the presence of it, because this is really like flattening the painting completely. So I take very less pictures of my paintings. And show them. But I think painting is a very strong and probably the central stem to my practice, because I think most of the works happen through sketching and drawing onto a two-dimensional surface. So even if it is a sculptural object, it's always something that's drawn onto the surface, onto a drawing, sheet, and then made into. So this is titled Landscape, and it's obviously an image of a bed which has got things in it, and things that are kept in it, and then they're suddenly protruding out. This is also something, I paint with, what you're seeing here is the loads of like layers of paint that have gone underneath it. So the gray that you see is almost like 7 to 8 layers of paint that have gone into it, and then you almost have this like image kind of appearing in it, or appearing from it. So the gray is not the gray of the paper, it's a white paper, but then I paint a lot of layers of gray, and I use this kind of tonality, or I use this kind of palette, because I also do not want my viewer to probably distract themselves through color. And that's what I feel with color, that color sometimes distracts you, and the grays kind of help you just, focus on the image. Can we see the next one, please? This again, it's a very blurred image right now here, and it's unfortunate. But again, there's loads of paint. The gray that you see are like at least 8-9 coats of grays, and then you have these pencil drawings or shades of or painted acrylic image. So what you see here is actually like a cabinet which has some kind of a surface which is almost like a landscape, which is probably from um, a place which is gone through some kind of upheaval. So it could be craters and holes of say mountains that you see onto the surface. Um, yeah, but I really feel, and the title I think of the work is 1123. So I also title the paintings with my with a certain time, because I find it I find that I almost need to kind of locate the work in some time, in a way. So it's also probably a way of thinking if it is the time that I made, when the work was made, or is it the time that's being depicted in the painting that's saying uh, that it's 1123. But it's really unfortunate. A lot of details are missing right now because of the quality of the image, I think. We can see the next image. So it kind of, I mean, from painting to moving into installational spaces. So for me, I think it's almost like moving in and out, as I mentioned earlier. And so this was a work that happened at the Kadistat Foundation, and it's called Room Full of Rooms. And I was in Cadiz for almost 2 months, and I was also trying to, this was 2013, and I was trying to also wonder what does an artist do when one goes to a new place, so you're like suddenly in Paris for 2 months and you're supposed to make a work there. How do you kind of also react to that place and that situation? And I thought I wanted to kind of also look at the city through the people who live within the city. So this work was made with the help of a lot of friends, where I managed to ask them if I could go to their homes and photograph their belongings. The whole idea was to also look at the city through their windows. So what you see here on the right is a window. Can we move to the next image? Next one. Yeah. So what you see here are actually, so there's a window, and the window is of a man, of a Tunisian man. So I went into his house and I photographed his window, and I wanted to see what a Tunisian man sees out of his window. Is it any different from, say, a woman who's probably come from America or someplace? And in that process, basically, I managed to get different parts of different people's homes. And so there's a Tunisian man's window, there's a Sri Lankan family's cupboard, and there's a English woman's ceiling, and there's a Bangladeshi person's family's, say, belongings. So it's like these multiple projections that kind of make this room. But it was also the first time I stumbled upon the slide projectors. And I think I also chose to work with slide projectors because the initial idea of the work was to kind of, I really wanted to capture light from someone's house. I wanted to see if I could like literally physically collect light from one place and then install it in the gallery. Was it possible to do that? And that's how the work, and that's how I kind of decided to work with slide projectors. And I'm just going to also charge my laptop because, yeah. Can we go back to the earlier image? Yeah. So what you see are also these. So for me, the space was almost something that, can we go back to the earlier one as well? Yeah. So there are these light projections, and there are also some sculptural, say, interventions onto the walls of the space. So it's almost like you're walking into the space with which has this entire, installational side. It's like you're almost walking into the whole work, into the womb of the work. Can we move to the next image? Yeah, so what you see here are actually laces. So I had bought laces from Crawford Market here in Bombay, and I kind of stitched them with laces in that I found in Paris, and I kind of weaved them all together, and then I installed them as almost like color peeling out of the walls onto the walls. Can we move to the next image? Yeah. So what you see on the corners are actually references to the sculptural, references of color peel in a way. Can we move to the next image? Yeah. And it was the idea of integration, because I think around that time in Europe and also in India, I mean, when we speak of migrants coming in, the whole idea is that you want their bodies to come in, you want their bodies to come in and work for you, but you do not want them to bring their culture in. So I remember around that time, even in Bombay, there were these clashes between the bhaiyas and the Shiv Sena goons here, that there were clashes about how, culturally they had issues with these people. You don't want them to bring their culture. You are okay with their labor, but you're not okay with them getting their culture. And then I was wondering and questioning also, is it possible for someone to come without that culture? Isn't culture your own skin and your home? That, how can you come somewhere without carrying your home with you? And I think that's what the installation tries to do, with roomfuls of rooms. Yeah, we can move to the next thing. Okay, this was 2013, and this was again a residency in Shanghai, and there was this really old, like 100-year-old house which was being broken down, and I managed to kind of recover the pieces of these broken walls. Can we move to the next image? And I kind of worked on each and every piece of the broken home, broken walls. I think the idea of choosing these broken pieces of walls was also to kind of imagine walls as witnesses to history, to something that, these walls have seen and experienced, and try and kind of retrieve them, because they were going to be raised. These houses were raised, and they were kind of building these commercial buildings onto these homes. Yeah, can we move to the next one? Yeah. So you see layers of paper, which were painted paper, and then you also have fragments of fabric and lace, which is kind of, layered into onto these. Yeah. And we go back to the photographic works, I think. Yeah, we can move to the next one. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Payal. Yeah. So this is again titled Capsule. These works were made in 2016, and they were part of my show at Project 88. And again, here I move into another. So I'm a bit. I mean, by now you obviously know I'm obsessed with also daily appliances. I kind of spend a lot of time looking inside the refrigerator or the washing machine, or also the mixer grinder. And I'm fascinated by these appliances and how they kind of, speak to us. So this was from the title of the show, When the Wind Blows. And what you see here on the ceiling is actually a styrofoam, which is stuck onto the ceiling. And then these were shot inside the freezer of these old refrigerators, which So nowadays you don't get these kind of refrigerators. You get all the frost-free ones, and these were the frozen ones. Can we move to the next one? Yeah. So it's again, it's really a small kind of space. And these works were happening post my residency in Berlin. And if we have time, maybe we can see the kitchen debate work because that's more extensive. But so these were made post my stay in Berlin after 2014. And 2014, and I think it was also a crazy time. You know, you were hearing about people trying to build seed walls in Norway and you know, planning kind of trips to Mars and things like that. And you were wondering if there was a sign of the world to end, and was there a sign that the world was going to come to end? And you know, that's why all these preparations. And so this particular work obviously was made in remembrance of the seed vault, and also cloning and yeah, various things like that. Can we move to the next image? Yeah, again, I mean, if you've stayed in Berlin for a year, I think it kind of starts, I think the Cold War somehow starts seeping into your psychological practice, or into your thoughts in some way. And I think I was in Berlin at a very interesting time. It was 2014, and it was the time when Crimea was annexed, and there was suddenly this whole conversation again in Germany about, you know, is it, you know, should we be worried? And obviously, I mean, it all resonates now in a totally, you know, strange way. So this was again in a freezer in Germany, and what you see is just this metal pipe. That's, for me, it creates the sense of being watched and surveillance. And the title of the work is "The Eye Never Sleeps." Can we move to the next one? Again, around the same time in similar series. So these are like actually your mixer blades, you know, which you find in local markets, and they were kind of installed in the refrigerator. But the setting is not just a found setting. The whole thing is really constructed. So you never see a light bulb inside the freezer. So that again is kind of something that I installed, and also the ice needed to be, you know, it's all curated and kind of constructed in a way. Can we move to the next one? Yeah. This is how it was installed in my show at Project 88. The title of the work was "When the Wind Blows." Can we move to the next one? Yeah, maybe move to the next one. Again, some of the works, I mean, these are works which have not been shown and not been printed yet, but I made it around that time. And so what you see here is again steel bowl, and then you know, a toothpick holding it. Yeah, can we move to the next one? This is obviously your latch, the curry thing, and cotton on top of it. Can we move to the next one? Yeah, this was again too. This is more recent actually. This was part of the Umrao Singh Shergill grant. So I had got this grant for photography, and so here I take another direction into the photographic works. What I've done here is that I've managed to make projections inside the refrigerator and then taken pictures of it. So it's almost like you're opening up another wall. And these projections are of slides that I'd found in an old market in Berlin. And these are landscapes of someone who had traveled maybe to the Swiss Alps or God knows where. And then, you know, these are just found images of some traveler, which are, so I'm now just going to move a little faster into the works because I wanted everyone to also spend more time looking at it and questions probably. So this is a close-up of one of the slides. We can move to the next image. Yeah, play this maybe. So this is how it was installed as part of the show. So there are 81 slides, which are basically, just kind of documenting or showing this foam inside the sink of a kitchen sink. Yeah, we can move to the next one. Yeah, this is how it was installed. Can we move to the next one? So this was part of my solo most recently in 2020. It was the title of the show was A Body Without Organs. And I think from looking at spaces and objects and everyday objects, I think I also was very keen on thinking about body and the kind of the body as a repertoire of events that happen to someone or events that happen and or yeah and I think that's what was the whole idea of the show. The show was also based on one of my close relatives who had suffered some lung infection after working in a soap factory for many years. Can we move to the next image? So in the install, what you see is this rinse soap, which has got these drops of saline water dripping on it every few seconds. And towards the end of the exhibition, can we move to the next one? So yeah, this is how it was installed at the Leonard Ellen Gallery in Canada. Montreal, but this is how it was installed, and so towards the end of the exhibition, it's almost like the soap is almost withered, and what you have only are these drops of soap around, and it creates almost like an abstract pattern of landscape. Yeah, can we see the next image? Yeah. So this was titled again, he woke up with seeds in his lungs. And this was just 1 week before the pandemic that, the show was installed, but the works were made in 2018. And I was looking at lungs and looking at the whole idea of how the lungs were infected, looking at the idea of a laborer's body that has kind of gone through all this, toxicness by working in different situations. So here, what you see is actually an X-ray image of plastic wires and steel wool which are put together. So it's almost like I'm constructing this object, this sculptural piece, taking it to this clinic, to this medical clinic, and then putting it under this X-ray, machine, and we're taking an X-ray of the sculptural object, and that's what you get in the end. So what's also interesting is that it's not a digital image; it's a totally analog. It's totally handmade in that sense, and the film is the film that you don't get to see anymore. And a lot of things happen by chance because it's not like you have control over how the rays are going to react to certain materials and mediums. And there were some funny things that would happen also. So on the corner of the image on the left, there's a small dot of white. It's actually an ant. So there was an ant walking and, we managed to get her X-ray as well into the... Can we move to the next image? Yeah, these were water balloons and some wires that were put together. And then, yeah, can we move to the next one? I think I would, so this is another intense body of work. It's called The Kitchen Debate. And I think I'll just briefly speak about it, that this work was majorly made in 2014 during my stay at Bethanian. And I was there for a year. And I have been fascinated with kitchen and the politics of the kitchen and labor within kitchen. And it was interesting to discover this whole conversation that happened at the peak of the Cold War in front of a washing machine. between Nixon and Khrushchev. And it was a heated argument about capitalism and communism in front of a washing machine. And that conversation became famous as the kitchen debate. And so that becomes that whole transcript. This is the transcript of the conversation. And I kind of use that to kind of look at the present. We can look at the next image. Yeah. So this is a chopping board. It's an everyday chopping board. It's a used chopping board. So you have almost these, cut marks kind of marks left onto the chopping board. And so there's a drawing of a hand and this kitchen towel, which is kind of kept onto the inside this light box. So it becomes almost like an appliance of sorts, but you're kind of examining this chopping board. Yeah, to see the next one. And these are called hot plates. So this is almost like interactive tables which kind of turn on and off, and the videos turn on and off, and they're called as hot plate 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, I think I will not burden people with more images. I think, yeah.
It's very exciting. We could go on, but maybe a few minutes more if you want.
Yeah.
I can.
So these are, yeah, okay. This is a close-up of the hot plate, probably too. We can move to the next one. There's obviously a reference to labor, and there's a very funny video. We can play this video of these two crows. Yeah. So there are these two crows which I found on a terrace in Bombay, and they were kind of pecking onto a menu card, and I managed to retrieve the menu card. And it's very funny. These two crows are on it very, sincerely, like as though they know what they're making. And if you see carefully, what they make is actually an image of a bird there, like they've almost pecked and created a bird image. And I managed to have this. So thankfully they left their artwork behind and they flew away. And I managed to retrieve it. So the earlier image, can we go back to the earlier slide? Yeah, so the thing on the left is the menu card that these two guys were working on, and clearly images of birds on it. So, I mean, I would like to believe that they were extremely conscious of what they were doing, but I also think it's also a way of imagining how art is made, and how you kind of stumble upon art and kind of make art. So, yeah. Yeah, so this is again the hot plate that we saw. We can move to the next one. Can we play this? So this is a video projection that plays, which was part of my show and also part of the kitchen debate. Yeah, I mean, it just plays in loop, and it's actually an image of just the top of the gas burner. But for me, it's almost like two eyes looking back at you. And yeah, it's a nice way to end it as well.
Yeah. I will stop sharing.
Yeah.
And I would like to first thank you so much for taking us into your world, into this daydream almost. It was wonderful. And I don't think we are ever going to see the objects around us in the same way after this. I think that your there's a sense of playfulness, there's a sense of, this thing with materiality. And yet there's so many layers to it. And it's so, the man who woke up with the seeds, I think that title itself is so powerful and so strong. And then seeing it with that image.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wish we could go on and on and on. But yeah.
Thank you.
So I would like to open up for any of the students if they want to, if you have any questions. We already have people saying thank you for the exciting talk. Yeah.
So most of them are from first year right now, whoever have joined. Yeah.
Most are from first year. Okay. Please unmute and ask your questions or put it in the chat box.
I see Akia is here. Hi Akia, how are you? He's here, right? He's left.
Very good. What a lovely talk. I'm sorry I joined late, but it was beautiful.
Thank
as
you.
always.
Yeah.
And of course, some of the shows I've seen myself.
Yeah, we've been part of as well. Yeah. So lovely to hear you.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you came. And I'm waiting for the question. It usually takes some time.
Yeah, of course. No, it's also, I mean, I feel that there's also like too much of like bombardment of images and information, and it takes time to process it. And
yeah, but they're too smart. They're good. They will come up with them.
Someone said this one's my favorite. Which one is favorite?
I think it was for the cauliflower one.
Oh, okay.
Well, but the Q&A doesn't have to be about questions, guys.
Yeah, it can be about
yourself.
Yeah, just absolutely.
But Payal, can they technically unmute and speak?
Yes, everyone can unmute and speak. Anyone?
So let's do that.
Nora just sent me some images of photography for Sonam's class, where she used a gas burner. Why don't you talk about it, Nora? Are you here? She was exploring stroboscopic photography.
Oh, wow.
But she should speak. She can speak. Nora, please.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's not.
Acha.
Oh.
I joined.
Oh, maybe some internet issue.
Connectivity issues, I guess.
Yeah. She sent me a whole list of photographs with what she has done. I will share it with you, Prajakta.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
I'm going to start, okay? Honestly speaking, I love your practice, and I think you know that, and I've been following for several years already. And I feel that what I have with regard to your practice is not really a question, because this is not this kind of practice. And I think Payal put it in such a beautiful way that now the everyday doesn't look like an everyday. Your work managed to estrange many things that we see.
I lost you, Akia. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got I got the phone call. I'm so sorry. So
no problem.
It's automatically disconnected.
Yeah.
So my question is this: if at all you can think about your practice not as a response, but as like consciously what you are trying to achieve. I think it's unfair to ask, but if at all, if you can reflect back, even if it's not conscious, what looking from the side even, what are you trying to achieve in your practice? This is a question that I myself struggle with, and I don't really have I'm thinking about it though, and I'm not sure that I always have the answer. So I'm curious in your case because I will put some more context into it precisely because your work is experimental, not only in terms of the material and the concept, but also of the mood. I thought to myself, it's so beautiful, and I've seen the work to show images of someone else that
Yeah.
you just happen to stumble upon,
Yeah.
frame it, and all. So it's something
Yeah.
very interesting. So what are your thoughts about it? When you think about your practice as a whole,
Yeah.
what is there that you add, or no, add is horrible, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, of course. And I think one tries to answer that with each work you try and approach and make. Sometimes it's formal, I think, I mean, I think with painting, I struggle with that. I think with painting, I almost feel like it's a huge question when one is painting even in today's time. I think it's almost like after such, it's almost like an archaic practice, to paint in a way. So what is it that you're trying to add new when you're trying to paint now? And how can you make it different? And what can you add to the whole history of painting as well if you're painting now? And so that's a question that I think one tries to answer through one's practice, but I think it's also on levels of formality sometimes that I think one is also trying to see if one can still have the faith in art, and one is not thinking in terms of the spectacular art object, but also can something actually still exist without just without too much of uh, you know narrative and meaning that's generated with words and text onto the work, but can it also just exist by what it is actually supposed to be? What is art then? And if you're all making it, then what is it? And can we all make it in or achieve it in that sense? And are these works even able to stand for themselves in that space? So I mean it's really it's almost like an existential question, and it keeps coming to, I'm sure, to each one of us who's also thinking about practice in a very serious way, that what is it one is making, and why is it one making, and what is one trying to achieve from what one is making? And especially in cases where you don't want these works to just land into uh, collections or into someone's homes and just be on someone's wall. You want them to also kind of live and have another kind of meaning to people other than who might just have them. uh, so I don't know. I mean, it's a question that really is extremely central to the way one thinks also, in the sense, if one is making photography, then you are thinking about also in terms of what you're trying to add to the language of photography. And if you are trying to make painting, then what is it that you also are adding to the language of painting? um, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, Akia, and it is a forever question, and it is also um, a question one is yeah, I mean, you feel incompetent to also answer it in so many ways, where you're functioning in the space that is the art world. So you do try and question the reach of these works also, to where is it finally going. But I mean, finally, you also know you're working through all your sincerity. You're working, uh, you're day in and night thinking of making art, and thinking and feeding yourself with uh, art that's made through films or through theater or through different practices, and you're also trying to feed yourself with all of that, and hoping that it all kind of makes sense with also what's happening with our country today. So yeah, don't know.
Thank you very much.
We have one question from Sabah.
Yeah.
Which is one of our students. When you changed your practice, how did you find yourself expressing through this new medium, and what was your experience?
Changed my practice when?
Yeah, Sabah, what do you mean by which new medium? What do you mean by this? Even I was wondering.
So she must have probably misunderstood photography. Okay. So photography has not been a separate thing in that sense. It is something that evolved through these cultural objects, and I go back to making painting and sculptures and site-specific installations even today. So it's always in and out. It's not like it's not like changing gears or not going back to where you started or things like that. Photography almost empowers you. I think it's a great medium. It almost kind of frees you of the burden of preciousness, which I think sculpture and painting create. I think there's just this whole burden of making something because you've invested so much time in the making of it. Whereas photography, I feel like it allows me, and probably I have that personality where I feel it allows me to be playful with something, and I don't have to worry about the preciousness of something. So there are moments where I move into that direction, and there are moments when I really feel that I need to just be sitting in one place and making something to also restore my faith into the process of making. And I think I go back to painting because of that. I think where you just need to sit in one place and make something, and see if it manages to create some kind of magic or energy. I'm currently in the library, so I'll be hard to speak. Okay.
Should I read it out or?
Yeah. Okay.
So Priyank Gotwal is asking, I am currently in the library, so it'll be hard for me to speak up my question.
Okay.
I'm posting it here. Hi Prajakta, thank you for sharing your works. I have two simple questions. As you said, your work begins with the feelings of burden of the space, also visible in the confined spaces of the refrigerators, and the fear of over accumulation. Do you think it's the impact of the Bombay city in which you're working? Secondly, how do you define your journey from the site-specific works of the curtains to the Marc Augé's non-place, still life, from location to dislocation?
Nice. Yeah, so obviously, it is Bombay city, which has also kind of impacted the work in a way that, the work has developed because of what is available with you, and you kind of make things with whatever is available to you. Yes, it is the city that has kind of also made me think about the kind of mediums that I choose. And second, on how do you define your journey from site-specific works to the curtains of Marc Augé's non-space? I think it's liberating sometimes that you can kind of almost zoom in and zoom out through your own lens, that is your own lens, and there's also something about scale that and location and dislocation that I think one kind of tries to poke at. I mean, in terms of what I'm trying to achieve through making them, I think it is um, it it's a way of almost reacting to your own circumstances, and yeah, so I think I would also want my practice to be, almost in a nutshell, like, the practice can move from here to here, expand it in a way where, you can kind of carry it in a suitcase and make your work happen anywhere. So I don't know if I've managed to answer your question, but I think location and dislocation again is such a interesting, thought, because I mean, where are we located is also a question. I mean, that I think I asked through work, and I think that gets. I mean, one tries to answer through work. Let it be the work at the Cadiz Art Foundation, where uh, all the people's homes that I photographed were not people who were originally from Paris. So they're all people who are from different locations. And these people from different locations have been all put in this one place, in this one site. And you're trying to see if this dislocation can create some kind of a harmony uh, in some way or the other, because there's this, and I think that in that particular work there's also this whole conversation of integration, because you want different people but you want them to integrate within your systems, and so there is a bit of question there. But I think location and dislocation is something that I'm totally interested in, and I kind of also address it through each work. It could also be the work that, the projections that happen in the refrigerator, because there's a site, there's a location there is a site that is being photographed, but the projection is of a distant location. It's a location from another part in history. So the slide projections that were projected into the freezer were actually from 1970s, from an unknown person, and they were his projections or his images that I projected inside the freezer. So I think the idea of location is something that I address through and within my work. And I'm so glad that you kind of brought that up.
I mean, taking that, I also thought of there is this always this distance.
Mm-hmm.
In all your work, there's some layer, or there's a distance, or there is something of not being able, there is a certain sense of obscurity where you cannot reach that place. And I think that's, it's also seen in the medium as well as the concept. I mean,
Yeah.
that sense that it definitely, it stays with me,
Yeah, because you don't know where this location is. Like, I think that's what happens with the refrigerator images, that you don't know where this place is. It takes a while for you to understand that it is something that is so familiar to you. It is your everyday, but it's made so distant and so surreal that you are suddenly dislocated in your location. You're kind of felt. So probably these ideas were also to make someone uncomfortable in a very comfortable situations. Yeah.
We have another student who has shared his work, and he's written, just wanted to share this work that was inspired by one of your works, The Kitchen Debate.
Oh, how sweet. Where is
there's
this?
an Instagram link, Prajot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want, you can.
I'll definitely check
have
that.
a look.
Yeah.
Everyone can have a look.
Yeah.
Prajot, you want to say something? Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Hi, ma'am. I think I've shared this work with you earlier. I don't know if you remember this.
Right. I think
Yes,
it was shot inside
this
the
was-
fridge.
Yes, it was shot inside the fridge.
Yeah. I think I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought of sharing with the rest of the crowd here on Zoom as well, just to show another work inside the fridge. I think that really interested me, the entire capture of the space. And now that I've seen more work, now that I know that you've installed it in way, I thought it was a particular cauliflower you put inside and then you photoshopped it. Then now I just want to ask one thing, just to clarify. Did you take off some of the pieces and place them in different ways inside the fridge, or was it just one whole cauliflower?
No, there were, that's what I said, there were different florets so there were 3 cauliflowers that are, so it's for me, it's almost like making a sculpture. All of them are quite sculptural in a way. So I make sculptures of them and then install them. So it's not just one cauliflower. I think the whole idea, I mean, the image I had was of almost creating a mushroom or a cauliflower which is bursting out. And that's why some of the florets are protruding out. And the whole idea was, so I pinned them. And I mean, that's also something that photography allows you, that this whole thing is so fragile that, you know, this whole setting is really for a few moments that, you know, unlike the escalators, which were obviously like smaller miniature escalators, which stayed properly for a while, but these cauliflowers and these tomatoes were things that couldn't really stay, and you're like literally pinning them and staging them for that one fraction of a second so that you have the right moment with you. So they're very momentary, but they are sculpted in a way. They're kind of put together in a very sculptural form. So there's cotton in between so that you don't see the pins, and there's the different things that I've added just so that you don't see the way they're put together.
Right. So I personally got really inspired by those works, and I wanted to use them in one of my projects in a course by Professor Sonam. It was called Static Images. So yeah, the theme was resilience, and I made this work to depict a sense of loneliness because the fridge had nothing else apart from its space and just that apple.
Yeah.
And I connected with a lot of other videos, and I, you know, connected with the larger theme. So just wanted to share it.
Oh, how nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Prajot. Nora, are you here? Do you want to talk about your stroboscopic photography? Stroboscopic photography, sorry. Are you here? I don't know. Okay. But I have shared it with you.
Yeah. I'll take a look for sure.
So I think it was so nice, and thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having me.
The students have really learned, and so much, you know, have been inspired after this, that anything can be made into art also. You know, there is almost this it's relieving, it's the sense of you know, this lightness that is there in your work.
No, absolutely, Payal. I mean, I'm glad you point that out, because I think that was something you didn't want. I mean, you know, because you grew up in the 90s where art gets so intimidating, you know, in a way that it's only by, you know, you paint all these oil paints and things like that. And you really wanted it to be, you were questioning that, you know, can art be as accessible and just around you and make you comfortable or uncomfortable or dislocate you or you know, in your surrounding.
Okay. So
okay, thank you, Akia, and thank you, Payal. Thank you for having me. Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay.
Thank you, Prajakta.
Yeah, mommy. Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed your talk. I spent.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
God bless you. Yeah.
Bye.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
हेलो हेलो